Greetings, everybody. My name is Charlene Thompson, and we're here with Rainia, Washington, talking about standalone initiatives going to sustainable initiatives. Rainia, the tragic events of last year particularly really lit a fire under companies around the world, leading many to be reactive without fully thinking things through. What advice would you give to an organization that was really well-intentioned, but now finds itself after several months just in a chaotic environment of DEI activities without really having an end goal?
So thank you, Charlene, and a huge thank you to Rogue Media Group for inviting me to be here today. I consider it both an honor and a privilege to participate in the 2021 iLeadership Virtual Summit. And I'll tell you that question, there's so many companies, so many organizations, and so many leaders that are really grappling with where we are in the state of our world today. When you think about all of the events from 2020, right, starting with a pandemic, a global pandemic that has impacted our nation and impacted many of us personally. When you think about that, and then you think about in the springtime and summertime, where we had just this display of racial injustice all across our TV screens. For some of us, it was in our backyards. There was this feeling that some of us had of hopelessness and some just despair, right? And how do we now get back on our feet, and how do we now respond to these two events that are happening all at the same time, and us needing to now continue to move forward? Many companies have started to invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm happy about it, I'll tell you that. And I know many of you are very happy about it as well. But I'll also say that it's been tough to now keep a pulse of all the activities that we've started and all of the conversations that have ensued and that really require some action. And so your question is pointed because it says that now that we've started all of this activity, what do we do? While organizations really could not predict that we'd be where we are, these issues are now starting to converge. And at my company, FINRA, we were fortunate to have really built our diversity and inclusion strategy well before much of this activity started. And so we were able to lean in pretty quickly and create an agile approach to how we would respond to all that's happening. To start, our CEO, Robert Cook, really initiated the conversation with his leadership team. And I think you're going to hear me talk a lot about the fact that when we think about diversity and inclusion initiatives, they really start at the top. They start with your executive leaders. They start with them really wanting to make a difference. And our CEO really took action and sent out a statement of commitment to racial justice to our entire organization. Soon after that, he met with not just his leadership team, but he met with our Diversity Leadership Council. He spent time with FINRA's African American Network, which is our employee resource group. He also hosted a number of listening sessions along with his leadership team hosting listening sessions. And what did that result in? Well, we got over 81 recommended actions for the company to consider. And I'm sure, like many of your companies, you're hearing a number of things that, the organization is saying, we just need to do different. And so as a result of that, we engaged with our leadership team to say, what can we do different? And our CEO then hosted a FINRA town hall where he had our board members engage in a conversation around diversity and inclusion and how we could make a difference. We had over 2,300 of our employees attend. Soon after that, we hosted another discussion around the same topic where we had more than 1,600 employees attend. And so my advice, because now we're thinking about how do we sustain this, right? How do we keep these conversations going? And so alignment is key. when you think about the alignment to your leadership team, when you think about pulling together and focusing on your organization's mission and your organization's core values, when you focus there and start there as an organization, all the work that you do afterwards will really be aligned to where your organization is going. I do believe that we are looking for a commitment from leaders. And that commitment really says that this is not just a one-year conversation. This is really a 5-year strategy that we need to put in place. And that strategy not just comes with words, but it also comes with funding, dollars, committed to this work, committed to making a difference and committed to making a change. And so I think that this approach will really allow organizations to think about how they can be more transparent. They could think about how they could be more well-meaning with their employees, and also know that they have support around them in order to move forward to make a difference.
You're so right. It does really need to start from the top. I've been reading so many articles where people were really unsure within their organizations whether things were meant or not, because people were saying the right things, but they couldn't really see action. So you're so right on that. It's a long-term journey, and it does need to be led, definitely. Continuing with that, there's a pressure in a lot of these workplaces, hearing from everybody at all levels, to simply fix it already, particularly people who aren't necessarily familiar with the journey, but are at least now very angry that there are still inconsistencies, shall we say, in the world. How would an organization go about deciding what to tackle first?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I always hear this notion of how do we fix it and how do we fix it quick, and let's move on. We want to be out of this conversation, and I'm going to tell you where we are. We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight. And so, if you're looking for a place to start, we talked about starting with your own values and mission for your organization. But it also is starting with what feedback you're hearing from your employees. Sometimes it might just mean you have to sit in a room and talk to those that are most impacted and hear their feedback and really listen to their feedback. And that's what we did at FINRA. We spent time, as I mentioned, talking with our employee resource groups and getting feedback from leaders and having leaders create safe space for employees to share their perspective. And some would say, well, we've heard the feedback before, but I'd also share that we've heard it, but I'm not sure we've taken concrete steps and taken concrete actions to make a difference. And so what we did at FINRA, and I'm hoping that this is kind of advice and counsel to others, we built a racial justice task force. This task force was launched in July of 2020, and it's comprised of diversity of all levels within our organization, all generations, across geographies. It has varying race, gender, and even technical expertise that's involved in the task force. And it's really charged by our CEO. In which the CEO has said, I want you to take the feedback that we're hearing from our employees, and I want you to go make a difference. Create some actions, create some tasks that we can do as an organization to really change the environment and change the way our employees interact with one another to create a more inclusive environment. So this task force is established to really support and be focused on our workforce. It's focused on our industry and our community. And ideas such as, I'll give you a couple of actions that we're working on. We want to create more professional development for minority employees at our organization. We want to make sure that promotions are equal. We want to eliminate barriers to entry into the securities industry, right? When we think about who's really leading the industry, we could use some more diversity in those leadership teams. We want to strengthen our own representation within our organization, and then enhance our investor education outreach to individuals from underprivileged, underserved, and minority communities. How do we do that and do that in an effective way? To date, this task force is beginning to pay meaningful dividends. It's been great just watching the members of the task force really learn and become more aware of how they can impact the organization and even grow in their knowledge of diversity and inclusion and what it takes to recognize how to be an ally and recognizing your own privilege in the skin that you sit in. Some of the actions that we've already rolled out is we've hired an individual who's going to serve as our officer of investor education, totally dedicated to educating and empowering diverse communities. We've also increased funding for our employee resource groups and the work of our Diversity Leadership Council. And I'll tell you, this was a major one. We spent some time really looking at our policies and our procedures, our code of conduct, and any employee handbook, whatever governs how you make decisions about employees. Look at those policies. Make sure that there's not inherent bias built into your policies, because sometimes leaders are making decisions based on what the process tells them, but the process isn't sometimes as inclusive as it could be. And so if you're looking for a place to start, there's so many areas in which you could begin to focus on, but I'd say talk to your employees, hear from them, engage your leadership, and then take action.
It's, again, couldn't agree more. And particularly on the policy front, I've been in conversations with a few people internally and externally, as you do. And there's written policies, as you know, and then there's the unwritten policies, the unwritten ways of going about things that need to be addressed, because they may not intentionally be designed to be harmful, but these things get passed down over time as the way we do things, and we need to look at those. We need to actually take a moment and have a look at it. So again, totally agree. What is your view on the seemingly more light touch DEI activities, such as the celebratory items like celebrating Black History Month or LGBTQ Month or Veterans Day? What do you believe is the role for companies to celebrate these things internally, and how much is too much?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I tell you, that's a conversation that I have quite regularly with our staff, right? And especially, I will tell you, we're in Black History Month now, right? And so there's a flurry of activities, but there's also such a great moment in time to learn. And that's learning not just for those who are in the community, but it's an opportunity to learn for those who are allies and partner with those who are in the community. And so, according to the latest series of reports produced by McKinsey, the latest one being How Inclusion Matters, the data really shows that hiring diverse talent is just not enough. Bringing employees into the work environment is just not enough. We have to make sure that we are creating workplaces that really shape our ability to be inclusive. And in some regards, inclusion starts with awareness. And it starts with learning about your peers and learning about other communities and other cultures. It brings about an opportunity for you to really have an appreciation for the differences that walk into or log into Zoom on a day-to-day basis within your company. So diversity awareness programs, which highlight cultural differences, they're an important part of building the understanding and really the empathy for our colleagues and how we work together, our customers, our stakeholders across diverse backgrounds. And so they can be powerful. And I think it's an opportunity to really open up your mind and learn. But while at the same time, we want to make sure that they're really providing, that these activities are really providing an opportunity to bring awareness back into the organization. So ensuring that that they're bringing a return on the amount of investment and time that we're putting into them. We have to balance that with learning, right? I'll tell you, I would never say that it's too much, because there's always someone out there who's interested in learning more. But I would say that you want to make sure that you're pacing yourself as an organization, that you're understanding how your employees really want to engage in these activities, and that you as an organization recognize the value that they bring. Because I would never say there's any part of what we do is a light touch. And I would never say that any of it is too much. But I would say engage, become aware, learn, and then be able to implement what you're learning in a way that is really building an inclusive environment.
Yes, very, very true. You had a long and established career at Lockheed Martin and are now relatively new to FINRA. Do you think there are fundamental differences in how industries treat DEI within their organizations?
So I'll tell you, while it's a very different industry, you run into the exact same challenges. Getting leadership support, getting leaders and helping them understand how to be inclusive leaders, identifying the funding to support the programs that you really want to, really initiate within your organization. It's the same challenge. And you're dealing with humans, right? You're dealing with people, no matter what industry you're in. I will say that what's important is understanding where you are as an organization, right? Understanding what your organization needs at the time. Some organizations have been very, very good about building diversity and inclusion and equity into their work. Some are at the beginning stages. Believe it or not, some of us started this journey as of June 2020. When George Floyd was murdered. That's when so many companies decided we need to take a different stance. We need to do something different. And so it doesn't matter the industry. What matters is that no matter what industry you're in, that you're finding an opportunity to knock down barriers, and you're creating an environment where everyone in the workplace has an equal opportunity to achieve their goals and to professionally present their full selves into the workplace. And so, my experience is that it's all about how we lead as leaders, and it's all about how we engage our workforce. And so it doesn't matter the industry. It's a challenge, but I tell you, I've seen all industries rise to the occasion in order to create this environment that we need to all be successful.
It's really heartening to hear. I imagine there may be some industries that may think they're a little bit more old-fashioned. So, but that's not for us, but it's for everyone. And, we're all people. There's people in all of these organizations, so therefore it matters.
And Charlene, that's the common denominator, right?
Yeah.
It's people. But can you say that there are some organizations that are risk averse and may not see the value in diversity and inclusion? And I think those that see where a company stands, they're probably the first to raise their hand and say it may be time to find their next opportunity, or that it's time for them to stand up and take a stance and be the change that the organization needs. But I do think that, just us being human and having our basic human needs, we wake up every morning and go into the workplace expecting to do good, right? And to be treated fairly and to be treated equally. And that's no matter what industry you're in, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because, you do come across some people sometimes where they think diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's only about people of color or only about the people who've been predominantly marginalized. And actually, it's about everyone. It's about all humans. All humans make up diversity. That's the whole point. And even that as a fundamental piece of education is something that I'm finding does need to be said. So,
Totally agree.
it's really interesting going on this learning curve. In a not-for-profit where every cent is more guarded, you carve out a space to sustain diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives?
Yeah, in really and truly in any organization, whether it's not for profit or for profit, this work around diversity, equity, and inclusion only works if there is a clear commitment from the top. And that top says that diversity is a strategic business imperative. So it doesn't matter how you make money or how you turn over money. You need that clear alignment at the top. And I'll tell you, our organization and our leadership team really recognizes that we will only win when we are a viable organization and employ true diversity policies, practices, and principles really that lead to every team member being able to bring themselves full selves to work. We want to be 100% invested and engaged in bringing innovative solutions, high quality product and solutions to our mission of investor protection and market integrity, specifically for FINRA. At FINRA, really our board level goals include leveraging the diverse background, experiences, and talents across the enterprise. And it's a key tenet to what we do as a business. And I think if you are in a company, no matter if it's for profit, not for profit, connecting with the leadership team and having them endorse and be an active member and engaged in where you're going from a diversity and inclusion perspective, it doesn't matter. But that is the key to being successful in really, really investing in this work and in this space.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. It's pivotal for the future of all organizations, I think. And it'd be interesting to hear your view on this. I personally think, whilst obviously this has been a very, very long road, I feel like as if we've reached a tipping point now. With everything going on at the moment, everybody was so much more in tune to the horrible events of last year. And particularly because they were as horrible as they were, but because, all of us are locked inside now pretty much. It would be difficult to see how we could go back to how things were before, where we know it's a thing that some people do, but we don't need to do it.
It is at this point, it's really hard to unsee what we saw.
Yes.
It's really hard to undo what we've started to get done. It's really hard. And Charlene, I'll tell you, if the momentum that has been really moving over the past, I'd say 7 months, if we go backwards, it would really, really be a shame for our nation. It would really, really be a shame for our world. I believe we have had conversations in and out of the workplace that we've never had before. We've had allies stand up in places that you would have never expected them to stand up. And I think it comes about with awareness. I think technology has enabled us to be more aware. I think cameras have allowed us to be more aware. And I think it's creating a level of courage, not just in the communities that have been underserved or one would say, not sitting at the table. I think it's a level of courage that's happened across the board. And I applaud all of us, right? Because it does take courage to really move in this space and to make a difference in this space. But we've done it. And we've done it over the last 6-7 months that in ways that we've never done it before. And so we have to keep moving. We have to keep the conversation going. We have to keep holding ourselves accountable. And we have to make sure that the momentum that we've gained, that we don't lose it.
Indeed, sustainable initiatives. It's it's been particularly heartening to see the amount of allies that have grown louder. And it's a brilliant word, what you've just said, courage. I didn't even see it as that, but it really has been courageous for people to step out of what used to be well, we know we don't agree with these things. But you just walk away from the people who have opposing views from you rather than actually saying, no, this isn't on. We need to sort this out now. And you're ignorant in some cases. So yes, the emotion that has come through from our allies has been really touching.
It has, and I will tell you, there's just some conversations that have validated emotions and feelings that have been in some cases bottled up for years, for decades. And I've seen friends, I've seen coworkers say, I feel validated. Someone recognized my pain or recognized what I've been feeling. And I feel as though there's some action that's going to happen to change my environment. And I get excited over that. And I'm hoping that we continue down that path of really making a difference, because it matters. It does not go unnoticed. It matters.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There is so much stuff that's going on, and we do need to keep the faith with it and find the energy, even though we've already had so much energy taken away from us with our own experiences, with having gone through this over and over and over again, with having to explain parts of your own reality that you choose to just keep hidden because you just get on with your day. But we have to be a part of these initiatives, because if we're not heard, then the decisions will be made without us. And
they will.
You do, have standalone things.
And that's where sustainability comes in, right? Because we live today for our children, right? We do the work we do today so that there are others who are going to have to stand on our shoulders in order to take this to the next level. And so ensuring that the work that we do today can sustain for tomorrow, can sustain for years to come, because there's so much riding on the work that we do today.
Definitely. You have to build something that can't be broken down.
That's right.
Rainia Washington, thank you very much for being here with us.